Hello, everybody, and welcome to our live stream this fine Friday afternoon. I'm Pete Wright, that's Seth Nelson, and we're about to do our podcast. And we hope if you are listening to this that you will chat with us. Anywhere you see this video, you can chat in the comments box, whether that's LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook, and we will get those questions. And if you're hanging out, we'd love to answer your questions right on air. So that's that. So are you ready? Shall we begin, Seth?
I'm ready, and I like it that you field all those questions and kind of source them, and so they always come as a surprise to me. It's nice.
That's what we're here to do, is surprise the attorney. You should brand that somehow. All right, here we go. Welcome to How to Split a Toaster, a divorce podcast about saving your relationships from True Story FM. Today, new toaster, who dis?
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Seth Nelson. As always, I'm here with my good friend Pete Wright. We're taking you back to court with who's who of the people who you might meet in the courthouse, on Zoom, and beyond.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And I believe last week was an unprecedented week because I gave you a pop quiz about our motions.
Yep.
You did great.
If I recall correctly, I did quite well on that quiz.
You did great. And so I feel like we're in a turnabout, questionable play kind of an area today.
Well, here's the thing, Pete. As you know, you're talking to a lawyer.
I've been told.
So, I mean, you haven't seen my bar license.
I know, evidence is outstanding.
Exactly. And that's why we're talking about the courtroom today.
Yep.
But I prepared a pop quiz for you because I thought two can play at this game.
Excellent.
I actually think you're going to do well with this pop quiz. And here's why. And I always hated this, by the way. I just did what my dad did when we would like work on my spelling words. Like, oh, this is an easy one. It's like, now you're going to spell it wrong. Right. So the reason why I think you're going to do well on this pop quiz is the question is, how many court personnel and other professionals can you name that might be involved in your case? So that's the question. How many court personnel and other professionals can you name that might be involved in your case? And the reason why I think you're going to do well is we have talked about every single one of these on the toaster.
Yeah, that's not a great measure. Like if you were betting, I would tell you not to actually count on that. So it's not great. This is not great. So how would you'd like me? The quiz, let me just restate the quiz because you're an attorney.
Okay.
How many court personnel can I name? The answer is
other
15.
Professionals.
Yeah.
Can you name? Okay.
All I'm telling you is 15. And you didn't ask me to do the list, Seth.
No, I understand. That's the second part of the question. That's the part I didn't tell you. Okay.
Oh, so great.
Now you've just made up this number of 15. Okay. And so like you're not gonna be allowed to say like the therapy dog at a law.
That was my number one.
Okay, that doesn't count. That would be a wrong answer. Okay.
Well, all right. So I'll start with does your divorce attorney count?
Yes. In fact,
I need a pen. I gotta make hash marks. All right. Good. Divorce attorney, 1 for Pete.
Good job.
The judge.
Judge is good.
We've talked to 2 judges and about judges. Who's the one who was it Martin Mull in who's the one who comes out and says all stand is at the bailiff? Bailiff. I have to tell you, I don't know what the bailiff does.
I will explain it later, but you're good.
The typist, court reporter. The
court reporter.
Nice.
You're at 4.
God, this is hard. Oh, you know who we talked about having the hardest job in the world? The judge's scheduling person who works with the judge.
I'll give it to you. I'll give judicial assistant, JA. Done. Being very generous today. You're
very kind. Okay. Are we now when we're talking about this? We set this up that we're talking about people beyond the firm, and I thought I was cheating by saying attorney.
No, you're good.
Are there others?
Anyone that's involved in your case? Really broad.
Okay. How about forensic accountant?
Yep. Nice.
Okay. How about speaking of who's the one, your Latin friend who comes, the guardian ad litem, gal.
The gal, guardian ad litem.
I'm doing great so far, you have to say.
You're at 7.
God, it seems like really far from here to 15.
It's 8 more. I just help you out.
So far. So far. Would you count, they're not in court, but would you count a mediator?
Yes, I would. Look,
okay.
Just from that, you had 8. Now you only have 7. You've crossed the barrier. And that's to your made up number of 15. I actually have more, but keep going.
This is not great.
You're doing great.
Okay. All right. Who, like, there's got to be somebody who, if there's who takes the checks? Is there like a cashier in the court?
There's no cashier. Okay. Technically, there is. I'm really going out on a limb on it. Clerk of the court. I'll give it to you.
Oh,
man.
They're the cashier. I think they'll be delighted to hear that.
Clerk of the court.
Okay. You've got what? 3 of them. Your paralegals. They help, right?
There we go. Paralegals. Okay.
So that's 10. Right?
Yeah.
I'm sort of crushing it. Like, to get to 10 when I said 15 as a gaffe. That's pretty good.
The other thing, I'll just let you know, I'm grading on a bell curve and you're the only one here. So I think you're going to be okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. Is there, so we have the case, we've talked about the appeals process, right? So yes. When I say judge, did you count the next judge, the appeals judge?
Appellate court judge? I did not. I gave you that judge. I didn't ask you the question because I didn't want to spark that answer. I was assuming you were counting trial judge, appellate court judge. Well done.
Okay. So
Judge
then
Lucas will be very happy that you remember.
He will be very happy. Now, on my list, I would now like to say appellate court judicial assistant, appellate court guardian ad litem. I think that gets me to 15.
Wrong. We're not being that generous.
Who does the who's the moderator of somebody who is has to deal with our dear friends Soberlink? Who is dealing with that? Is there like a separate investigator we talked about who's monitoring that stuff, or does that come back to the attorney?
That comes back usually to the other parent is usually how that comes back.
Okay. So I would like to say other parent, please.
I'll give you Soberlink though.
Okay.
I'll give you third-party verification to make sure people are doing what they're supposed to do.
Well, with that bit of generosity, I'm at 12, and I think I may have run out of steam.
Okay. Let me go through some. I'm going to whip through these quickly.
All right.
You got judge, then you got appellate judge. You didn't get general magistrate.
I thought that was in Britain.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to talk about what a GM is.
Okay.
Then you got judicial assistant.
Okay.
Bailiff, you got court reporter, paralegal. These were 2 gimmies that I thought you were going to get, but you didn't really organize them the way that I did.
Have we met? Like,
yeah, I know.
Really?
I know. So, legal assistant you might have at the office, and you might have a scheduler. Okay.
I was trying to hold back on naming
excuses. Okay. Forensic accountant, an appraiser. And there are all types of appraiser for houses or personal property or artwork. You got guardian ad litem. You got mediator, social investigator, mental health professional. We'll talk about it. We'll get to that. Financial planner. We've had those on. Okay. This one was hard. I didn't think you were going to get this one. Corporate counsel. Sometimes
if you're separating businesses.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
I had lawyer down. Okay.
I got that first, right off the dome.
But you didn't get opposing counsel. I thought that was a gimme. Okay.
No.
Okay.
We
actually
even
would
said
have.
opposing counsel several times.
I really thought it would have been funny if you would have forgotten lawyer. Like
Yeah.
I was hoping you were. Okay. You got appellate judge. That I did not see, like I said up above. Okay. That was pretty impressive, even without a bell curve. Solid A. Solid A.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Now, let's just back up. Okay.
Okay.
And we're going to start at the end of your case.
Okay.
Okay. And then we're going to kind of work backwards from the courtroom down because other things might happen where you get things settled. Okay. So let's first start with the appellate judge. We don't want to be in front of the appellate court. The appellate court grades the trial judge's papers.
Right.
So you're only getting to an appeal is if the judge has made a decision. So if you've settled your case and the judge signed off on it, there's nothing to appeal because the judge didn't make any decisions. And the only thing the appellate court does is, did the judge at the trial level make a mistake?
Okay.
So you're only going to get there if there was a motion that was filed and then you went to a trial and maybe the judge denied your motion to continue the case. And then you felt like you were kind of had your hands tied and you couldn't put on a full case and they should have let you continue it based upon the rules in your local jurisdiction. So you try the whole case, you don't like the outcome, you appeal, and the appellate court says to the trial court judge, you tried a great case. You made every decision correct in the trial, but the trial was too soon. You should have let them prepare better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
So it can be a mistake at trial. It can be a mistake in one of those motions that we talked about on how you lead up to trial. It could have been a mistake on a motion in limine that you kept evidence out that should have come in, or vice versa, that you shouldn't have heard that evidence and you decided on that, but that was a mistake in law. So there's a lot of mistakes that judges can make. And as we know, they're overworked. They don't have enough time. Dockets are crazy long due to no fault of their own. So appellate court judge. So that's what and they're usually in groups of 3, and sometimes you go to a full bench and you don't want to be there. Okay.
How many is a full bench? Is that 3?
No, well, you have 3 in Florida. You go in front of 3, and in the appellate court, in federal court, you go in front of 3. Mm-hmm. And then, it's tiebreaker 2-1, or they all agree.
Yeah.
But then you can do what's called en banc, where if you don't like the decision that the panel made, you can petition the court to be heard by all members of the court.
Oh man, if I were an appellate court judge and I got that, I might be a little bit peeved.
Yeah. Well, you usually, and there's like kind of unwritten rules. Like if you don't agree with the opinion, maybe you don't do en banc, but if it's a big issue, so let's go back all the way to Bush v. Gore.
Oh, are we dangling chads?
Yeah, exactly. So that went, I think that might have gone directly en banc because they knew it was going to be such a big thing. The whole court was going to hear it. Right. Okay. All right. Now let's back up. We got the trial judge. As we know, the trial judge gets assigned. Check your local jurisdiction. But in Florida, in Hillsborough County, these judges rotate in and out of courtrooms. So that you might have a family law judge at the beginning of your case, but that judge has been there 2.5 years. Your case is gone for 6 months. The 3-year mark hits. It's January. The judge gets transferred to the criminal division, and you get a new judge popping right in the middle of your case. Okay. You could have trial set on January 15th. Brand new judge. Never done family law before. Call your first witness. Let's go. So making a lot of decisions, a lot of discretion. Now, we've talked about how do you get something on the judge's calendar. You got to talk to the judicial assistant. You've got to clear the calendar. And the goal for today is not to have our listeners like memorize these people, but you don't want to be afraid of like, who are these people? So
sure,
just tag this, come back to it, listen to this again, go through the list. Okay. Judicial assistant, you'll probably never see. Sometimes they'll come into the courtroom, but
because a judicial assistant, you're working with the firm, right?
Yeah,
You're working
the
scheduling.
firm's doing the scheduling.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Then you have the bailiff. Okay. Bailiff is the court security officer. Sometimes it's a sheriff's officer that's assigned to a certain courtroom, a specific judge. Sometimes they rotate in and out. When you go to court and you're driving to court, you need to be nice to everybody. Bailiffs will see you. Judicial assistants might see you in the hallway. You don't know who they are, but they talk. And the judge isn't supposed to consider what they say outside of the courtroom, but they hear stuff about how people act. So I tell all my clients, right when you get in your car to go to court, you need to pretend that the judge is watching you. That's how you need to
Because
behave.
the judge has eyes everywhere, is what
That's
you're
right.
saying.
That's right.
And
Indigent
would
surveillance.
you be rude to Richard Mall? Of course, Richard Mall is the categorical great bailiff. He was the
Yes.
bailiff, right?
Yeah.
Bull.
Yeah. Bald.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big
Not
guy.
court.
Bald. I
Yeah,
like the
big
bald
guy.
part. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
All right.
So night court. Love it. So, and let me tell you, I have had clients tell me, "Oh my God, Seth, I loved walking down the hall because every bailiff knew you, and they walk in and they're joking around with you. Just put your clients at ease."
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a state of familiarity.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
That's
So
great.
the other person in the courtroom, it might be the court reporter, and that's the person who is taking down everything that's said in court. So the stenographer.
Okay.
You have to order a stenographer. One doesn't come with the courtroom. Okay. You have to schedule it. You have to pay for it.
Do you
Okay.
ever get one, like just a bonus stenographer? Just buy one, get one free? It's a BOGO.
Sometimes both sides will order it, and
There you go.
problem. Okay. All right. That's the courtroom. Now, on the stenographer, it's important to know, and you need to talk to your lawyer about this. If you're going to a big hearing, you need to ask, are we getting a court reporter? Because if you don't have a transcript and you want to argue about it later and grade the judge's papers by going to the appellate court, they can't. It's really hard for them to grade when they don't have a transcript of what happened. To get a transcript, you need a court reporter.
Okay.
Okay. Paralegals, the lifeblood of the firm, right? They keep everything on track. Now, paralegal, legal assistant, and scheduler are all broad terms. So paralegal will help you get your financial disclosures together, will help you coordinate your documents, might help the lawyer draft some basic pleadings like notices. A legal assistant might do more scheduling and making sure like everything is tracked that's filed in the court with the clerk of the court, who we're going to get to. If something gets filed in court, it gets filed with the clerk of the court. We want to make sure that we put it into our own system, right? So you're not always going to the clerk. So in the clerk of the court, who you got, you called them the cashier, is who you file your legal documents with. They literally keep the court files. They do a lot of other stuff, but they keep the court files. So that was really impressive that you got that.
It's not impressive. The question is, Seth, would they be impressed that I called them a cashier? And my hunch is no.
They would say that was one of their duties.
Okay.
Because when you file, you have a filing fee. And if you're of indigent status, they have to run that by and maybe take filings without a payment. So I don't think they would be offended. I think they would say it was one of their job duties, but they do a lot more.
The defense rests. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to talk about mediation. We have a mediator, a third party, neutral. We've had on the show before. We might have her again. I got to reach out. So the one who will not be named does not scold me. Andy.
Andamort.
Tammy Spar, one of the best mediators, in my view, on the planet. So a mediator is a neutral third party who will go back and forth from one room to the other. You'll be in one room with your lawyer. The other side will be in the other room with their lawyer and try to get your case settled. Ultimately, the drafting of the marital settlement agreement, which deals with the financial issues, or the drafting of the parenting plan that deals with the kid issues, is the responsibility of the lawyers. The mediator is the stenographer. Now, really good mediators that work with lawyers might suggest language, but it's not their language. It is the lawyers have to decide. The mediator cannot decide. The mediator is not a decision maker in any way, shape, or form. You don't have to impress the mediator. You don't have to bring evidence for the mediator. Mediation is all about perception. And can your lawyer, through the mediator, express what your issues are and why you think these issues should be resolved the way that you believe the outcome should be? I'll put, quote, in your favor, and then take that to the lawyer on the other side and say to the lawyer on the other side, here's why they believe X, Y, and Z. Even if the lawyer agrees, he has to persuade the client to agree. And the client can say, I don't care. I'm still going to court. I'm going to have a judge tell me. Right?
I mean, you're describing a glorious game of telephone tag, right? With many different complicated communication areas of communication breakdown. Can you just give me a tight 60 seconds on what makes a great mediator to be able to manage this space?
Yes. A great mediator like Tammy understands that they need to hear what we're saying and be able to explain it in the other room, understanding how it's going to strike their ear. She doesn't have to say it the same way. If I tell her to say specific words, she's required to say those specific words. I can't control her tone.
Right.
I can't control her saying, look, I'm required to tell you this under the rules. I know you're not going to like it. You're just going to say no. But Seth Nelson wants me to tell you X. Like, it's just taking the wind out of that sail. Right?
Okay.
But really understanding and knowing how to get the case settled and to see through this telephone game where there's areas of potential compromise and settlement. And great mediators will, quote unquote, battle back with me before they go in the other room because they work with the lawyer before. They know the lawyer knows the law, and they're going to battle back with me. Now, they're not going to go take their expertise on the stuff they battled back with me and go to the other side and said, you should make this argument.
Right.
Seth didn't have a good answer.
Okay.
Right. That's not what they do. And if the other side never brings it up, Tammy doesn't bring it up in the other room. But when you really know the lawyers, and you really know the law, a good mediator is going to kind of like push back on the lawyer in an appropriate way. Right. And that's one of the great things about Tammy is not only does she know the law and knows how to look for areas of compromise and how it's going to reach the other side, she knows the lawyers and she can deal with the different personalities.
Okay. So it sounds very much like a great mediator is somebody who can shape a discussion and not just be somebody who, passes notes back and forth.
They're not a monkey saying,
yeah,
give me 20 grand. No, I want 40. Give me 30. Let's split in the middle. Right.
Okay.
It's much more complicated. And great mediators in family law are a lot harder than personal injury cases because personal injury, you start doing these bracket stuff and you're really dealing about how much money, right? There's one issue.
Sure.
When it's expanded, sometimes it's easier to get things settled. When you got one issue, sometimes it's harder, but it's difficult. Okay. So, well, if you're preparing for mediation the way that we do, we want to be prepared. So what do you need to be prepared? You need to have all your financials laid out and understanding how we're going to divide up the assets. What, if any, alimony there's going to be? What's the child support calculation? And to do that, you might need a forensic accountant. And a forensic accountant is a CPA who is going to do a tracing of assets and debts to determine what, if anything, is marital property to be divided and what, if anything, is non-marital property to be divided. Now I'm just starting with the division of assets and debts. Now, ultimately, they can't tell you if it's marital or non-marital. That is a legal conclusion by the judge, and there's legal arguments. Great forensic accountants have done it so often, they know what the legal arguments are because they've been sitting in the room for 10, 15, 20 years, right? So they're going to be like, well, I didn't find that this account was commingled. It was inherited to the husband. He always kept it in a separate account. And that's going to be the evidence. They will not say, therefore, it is non-marital because that's a legal conclusion.
Sure.
But when they're working with their lawyer, they're going to be like, yeah, I put in the non-marital column. I know what you're going to say. Right. They will also do a tracing of there was $100,000 in this account on the date that the divorce was filed. What happened to the money? It's gone. Well, if it
Sure.
was all used to pay taxes and mortgage and they'll trace that, then it's up to the lawyer on whether they can try to recoup that. But we want to know where the money flowed to. Okay.
So the financial this person isn't making any judgments either, right? This person is serving to unravel the knots.
They're
And give you
unraveling the
the
knots. That's
purpose,
right.
right.
Now, is there judgment calls within unraveling the knots? Sure. By way of example,
Sure.
let's say you've given them 2 years worth of a time frame. So you've got, January 1st, 2021 forward for 2 years, but you've only given them 18 bank statements. They got to fill in some holes.
Right.
There might be some judgment calls filling in those holes, right? So they might do an analysis looking back for 2 years to figure out where people spent their money. Was anyone hiding money? They're doing an alimony calculation. They might be doing a business valuation, and we're going to get to how that ties in with corporate counsel in a minute. So that's what a forensic accountant is there to do.
Okay.
A lot of people get worried about forensic accountants because it's an added expense. What they don't realize is sometimes it's cheaper for the forensic accountants to do it than have the lawyers do it with their paralegals. And then it's better for them to testify. But, do you want someone digging around every expenditure that you've made over the last 2 years, Pete? That doesn't sound like fun.
I don't love it. No.
No. So if they're dealing with a business valuation, they might have to get corporate counsel involved. If people own a closely held business, how is it structured? How are these deals structured? Are you allowed to transfer your interest to your wife even though she's not on this deal? There might be some corporate documents and partnerships that don't allow you to transfer. So your wife might be entitled to half the value, but she can't get the actual business entity or the stock that owns the business entity.
Okay.
So, and those are really usually high-end cases, complex deals that people do. I love those cases. I love working with quality corporate counsel. And it could be land deals. It could be stock options with closely held businesses. It could be stuff where you're tying your money up for 2 or 3 years. So what's the value now? It's hard to determine because you can't get it out. So there's a lot going on there with corporate counsel.
Okay. And corporate counsel is going to be a character that you might actually see in those cases in court.
Yeah, if there is a business and the business is also being sued as part of the divorce, corporate counsel might show up to represent the business, which now is interesting because there'll be corporate counsel representing the business, then the divorce attorney representing the wife, and the wife owns the business, and then there's husband's counsel who doesn't own the business, but it's the business is marital property. So there's a little potential conflicts going on here, right?
Right.
Okay. So you got to be careful. Switching to kids issues, social investigator. Okay. So social investigator might do a mental health testing on the parents, might talk to the kids, might talk to collaterals, third parties, and will come up with a parenting plan on what they think is best. Very similar to a guardian ad litem, but for the fact that a guardian ad litem cannot do mental health testing. That's not their job. Now, we've talked on this show and check your local jurisdiction that a guardian is not allowed to go into court or put in the report anything that other people tell them. It's called hearsay. There's a specific legal definition of that we won't get into today.
Right.
But a social investigator is allowed to use hearsay because they are deemed an expert, where a guardian is not deemed an expert. In Florida, that might change in the future. There's some discussions at some levels to change that rule.
Okay.
So talked about a guardian again, similar, but you have that kind of little rule that's different. Okay. General magistrate. This goes kind of back in the judge column.
The one I thought was British.
That's right. GM is their nickname. Just view them as a junior judge. They don't wear robes, but they're there to help. They sometimes deal with just discovery issues. Sometimes they deal with things that the case is over, final judgment. There's still problems. It's post-judgment. those might get referred to a general magistrate. In Florida, you're allowed to have your case heard by a circuit court judge, and therefore you can object to the GM on some occasions, and then you're back in front of the judge, or you can go to the GM. So just think of them as a junior judge.
A junior judge, but are you scheduling, like as an attorney, are you scheduling your cases to be heard in front of a GM?
If it gets referred to a GM without objection, then yes. And
Okay.
they're not in a courtroom, they're in a hearing room. It's usually set up where there is a table, a conference table that is like T-shaped, and they're sitting at the top of the T, and the parties and the lawyers are facing each other on the long part of the T.
And
So-
all of the tables are about 3 inches shorter than the
Well,
judges'
They're
tables.
a junior judge.
They're a junior
Exactly.
judge.
Yeah. And being a short guy myself, I
It's
prefer
fine.
being in front of the GM. It's
Right.
fine. Yeah. I don't have to have my feet
What-
dangling.
I need another I need another tight 60. What is the path one takes to become a junior judge? And is a junior judge a stop on the path to becoming a judge?
You apply, and you apply to the circuit court, and the judges are the ones that decide whether to hire you or not. Now, you are employed by the county,
Mm-hmm.
but they're the ones that fill those positions.
Okay.
People have tried to go from being a GM to being a judge. It's hard because if you want to run, because in Florida, it's an elected position being a judge. If you want to, at the trial level, if you want to run for judge, you have to resign from being a GM. So you got to give up your job just to run. Now, if there's an appointment, then the governor can make that appointment and make you a judge. So that could be a stepping stone, but it's hard. It's hard.
Okay.
And they do a lot of great work too.
Okay.
Okay. Pete, lawyer. Finally, we got the lawyer.
We got to 30 minutes and 5 years later, we're talking about an attorney.
Right. Okay. The good news is you get to pick your lawyer. Listen to our episode. Maybe Andy can put in the show notes on how to pick a lawyer, because that's something that you control, is the lawyer you choose to work with.
From then on out, it's not all yours to control.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And you don't get to pick opposing counsel.
Okay.
And you can't do anything about that. So we deal with the problems that we can solve. Right? If we have no control over it, we're going to have to keep moving on. And that's
Do you
very
ever see a
frustrating.
situation where couples are having a fairly easy divorce and they go in on it together? They just say, okay, he's going to be mine and I know who yours are, and you guys work together well, and let's just solve this?
I certainly have had that happen. So people have said, who do you work well with? Who would you recommend? I want this to go well. And I said, when you're saying who do I work well with, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you names of very good lawyers. They're going to know the law. I'm not going to pull one over on them.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Because you don't have a dummy in the wings who's just going to do anything you want them to do.
No, the dummy in the wings is Andy, but he doesn't do everything we want him to do. No, you don't want that, because they're not going to know. They're going to make the case harder, right? When you have an aggressive attorney that doesn't know what they're doing, it's the worst counsel to go up against, because everything's a problem.
Okay.
So yeah, that does happen. Okay. There's one more person that you forgot. Okay.
Okay.
We went through a long list. I just gave little bullet points because this show's pretty simple today.
Yeah.
Here are the people that you might hear about. Here's a little snippet about them.
These are the people in your neighborhood.
Can you think of anybody else, Pete? I mean, this one is like hitting you in the face. It's so obvious.
Is it you, the client?
No.
That would have been good, though, right? That would have been poetic.
Yeah, but
it all comes back to looking inside yourself.
I see.
I don't know. Who is it?
A podcast host. I mean, come on, Pete.
When we get some on the street interviews, just walking out of your court appearance, and we'll start doing some interviews.
To Pete Wright, who's never wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just tell it like it is here today.
This is the empty chair at your table all the time.
If you need a rube, like we got one for you. America's favorite rube.
That's it. America's favorite rube. I'll take it.
Any questions on any of those?
I don't think I have any questions on any of those. I do think I have a couple of questions on some folks that I don't think you mentioned, and I'm very excited to see if you can tell me what they do. And part of this is my pop quiz. And not only do you have to tell me what these people do, you actually have to tell me what the subject is of my pop quiz.
At this point in the pop quiz, I have to tell you this?
Yeah. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Family panel lay magistrate.
I have never heard of that. But
Interesting.
I would tell you. Oh, I see what you're doing, rubbing the old chin there.
Yeah, you see it.
Family panel lay magistrate. It sounds like a group of at least 3, because you always have to have a tiebreaker.
Okay.
And then it would be dealing with family law cases. And magistrate sounds like a junior judge, like a general magistrate. So I would think it is some sort of system somewhere in the world where they want to keep this out of court, and you're going to some lay people to try to solve these problems.
You are a problem solver. Let me tell you what the actual thing is, because I'm going to give you partial credit. These are members of the public who sit as magistrates in the family court, hearing both private and public law cases concerning children.
There we go. There we go.
Still haven't quite nailed the subject of my pop quiz. So I'm going to give you another one. How about CAFCAS officers?
Oh, I know the subject of your pop quiz.
What's that?
Shit Seth doesn't know.
It is slightly more specific than that.
Because that's a very broad topic.
Yeah, very broad.
What is this next one?
The CAFCAS officer. And I will tell you this. CAFCAS is an acronym.
Well, I figured that.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get a spelling of that?
CAFCASS.
No idea.
This is an officer of the CAFCAS, and the CAFCAS is the Children and Family Court Advisory and Support Service. This is a significant part of the court system. These officers conduct safeguarding checks, check out investigations and assessments, and provide reports to the family court.
Check your local jurisdiction.
Oh, yeah.
He is now in New Zealand, I believe. So
you're getting close. You're getting very close.
Australia.
I'll tell you what I was interested in, because I'm going to give it to you, because we could belabor this all day. We spoke to a British barrister to talk about the differences between the British and the domestic, like the American systems. And I was really interested in what are the positions, what are the personnel you're going to run into in a British system, and how do they parallel? There are a couple. This CAFCAS officer was an interesting one. The lay magistrate I thought was fascinating. Members of the public to sit in on your divorce case to hear about children.
And the reason for that is, as she told us in that episode, judges don't deal with the kid issues. They're like, you figure it out. You're the parents. That makes sense.
Recorders. One more. Recorders. What would you say is a recorder in the British system? I guarantee you it's not what you think.
A recorder in the British. Well, what I was going to say is I thought it was going to be a court reporter, which is not then based on what you said.
Yep. No, I am tricking you here. A recorder is a part-time judge who can hear both public and private law matters, similar to family circuit judges. Those are called recorders. Members of the court, I rest my case.
Okay.
That was great. That was really fun. We learned some things.
I think I'm a much more lenient grader than you.
I give you 1,000%. You just won. You won the law today.
You know.
No, you won the law. I'm fine. You're fine. You're fine. You won today. This was wonderful. I really appreciate the insight, and I hope that people actually see the puzzle pieces really coming together by now in our seasonal series of your divorce case. Like, these are the people, these are the faces that you may run into, and we want you to be familiar with them. We want you to feel like they're part of your team, even the ones that are hearing your case and making decisions. they're all on the team to dissolve your marriage. So,
and some you don't have to pay for, and some you do.
Some you do, right?
Yep.
That's all for the spreadsheets and the clerk
right.
of court. We'll call them that. All right.
Cashier.
Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. Don't forget, you can send in those questions. We have now officially, I will say, behind the scenes, Andy, who is smarter and more proactive than both of us, has already scheduled our first of this season's Q&A episodes. That is coming up. We are going to be recording that, I'm going to say, soon. So, as this comes out, make sure you keep those questions coming in. Visit howtosplitatoaster.com, click on the submit your question button, and it will come straight to us, and we will try and bundle those questions in a nice, easy way for Seth to answer them. And that's coming up very, very soon. We'll scratch all of that because Andy has just told me that that questions episode is actually playing before the episode you're hearing now. So let's just say, keep those questions coming. howtosplitatoaster.com. We'll have another questions episode coming up very, very soon. And we look forward to answering your divorce questions. Thanks, everybody. On behalf of Seth Nelson, America's favorite divorce attorney, and I'm Pete Wright, America's favorite legal rube. And we'll see you next week right here on How to Split a Toaster, a divorce podcast about saving your relationships.